Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, my name's Arsh Ellahi, and I am extremely excited to be here with you this evening. It's Wednesday, the 27th of January 2016 at 8 p.m. Um, I'm online tonight with a very good friend of mine and business partner to the name of Neil McCoy Ward. Neil, are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm online, Ash. Thank you. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about something which is pretty much a bit of a hot topic, especially for 2016. And if you've set your goals for this evening, if you've set your goals for 2016, I pretty much could say that a lot of people have got this strategy in their toolbox for this year, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and we're going to be discussing it this evening. So, but before we do any of that, the one thing that I like to do is just do a bit of housekeeping, check that everyone can hear us clearly and correctly. So if you can, would you mind just in the panel box that you've got on your screen, just if you can type in that you can hear us nice and loudly and clearly, please. Okay, brilliant. So a lot of people are saying, yeah, they can hear us nice and loud and clear. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got some old friends online as well. So good to see you. Right. Okay, fantastic. Right. So we've got together quite a pretty and powerful presentation for you this evening, and we're going to be talking about how rent to rent works, why it works so successfully, but more importantly, how to find tired landlords. So, okay, moving forward, in 60 minutes, here's our promise to you, and here's what you're going to have and the skills that you're going to be able to possess. So, how to find landlords who are interested in the easy life, how to negotiate a win-win scenario and take on their property, how to add value with minimal cost so that you can easily cash flow between 500 to £1,000 per calendar month. Now, does that sound good to you? If you can, I want you guys to interact with us as much as we're going to be interacting with you. So if you like the thought of that, yeah, if you can give us just a quick yes or a no, that's great. Because if you don't like the sound of that, you're on the wrong webinar. So let's move forward. Little introduction. We're going to keep the introduction short and sweet because we really want to get into the content and the meat. Obviously, we've got 60 minutes with you guys, which means that we've got 60 minutes to tell you all lots of great content. So my name's Arsh Ellahi. I run a group of 12 property companies with my brother Aki Ellahi. I'm a normal guy, just like everyone else. I enjoy doing all the things that everyone else does, like go to the gym, go down to the local shop, buy the local paper, etc., etc. And we're landlords and letting agents. We've been letting property since 1973, which technically isn't correct because I wasn't born until 1980. But I'll talk to you about that story a little later on. Now, we've currently got well in excess of 500 tenants, and the beauty of it is that we've got a 100% rent collection record and a very high 98% occupancy rate, and that's quite impressive. If I'm going to be completely honest, I'm really proud of that. So that those that don't know me have never met me. There I am on the left-hand side, happy-go-lucky chappy, and on the right-hand side there's my brother Aki Ellahi, who's pretty much a little bit more serious than me, but together we make a great team. So other things that I'm involved in, yes, I am a speaker about property. Go all around the country, speak at national events, as well as I'm a author for author of an Amazon bestseller book, which is called Boom Bust and Back Again. I'm a property trainer. I'm a landlord. I'm an investor. I own a group of letting agencies, and I'll put this in brackets because I'm a bit of a TV celebrity. In March last year, appeared on a program called Britain's Benefit Tenants, and I think you can still find it actually on 4OD. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm going to pass you over to a young gentleman. I'll say young because he looks extremely young. It's the name of Neil McCoy Ward, who's going to tell you a little bit about who he is, what he does, but more importantly, how he came across this strategy, which has transformed so many people's lives. So Neil, over to you.
All right, Ash, thank you. I'm just reading through the screen here to see what you've written about me, actually. So I'm just going to freestyle. So I've actually been an entrepreneur for quite some time now. I originally started in the British Army, and I was in the Army for quite a while before I realised that my skills were probably better suited to the outside world. So when I actually left, I ran a lot of different businesses. And like most people, the first ones didn't work too well. It took me a while to actually get that experience and know what works in the real world in terms of business and property. So I actually bought my first investment property at the age of it was 11. It was 2005. So what was that? I was about 20 years old then, because I'm 31 now. So I am a little bit young, as Arsh said. Um, and back then it was really easy to buy property, as a lot of you who've been in property for a long time will know. Because back then it was just a lot looser, it was very simple, and because the prices were rising so quickly, you could just buy a house, spend a couple £1,000s on it, just doing some renovations, and then you could call in the mortgage surveyor and say, look at all this work I've done, and they value it up by another 10,000, and then you can release that 10,000 or 20,000 and buy another house using it as a deposit. So it was really easy back then, especially with the mortgages, 100% mortgages and things like that. So that's how I actually started in property, buying property, did some refurbs, did some sales, but most of the properties I actually held on to. Now my strategy's completely changed in that, as Arsh will probably mention, I've sold a lot of my properties. I don't own a huge amount compared to what I used to now, because my strategy is very different. I focus almost entirely on rent-to-rent within the property world. I do have a home improvements and investment company as well, so I help people to invest in property. But in general, most of my money comes from deal sourcing and rent-to-rent in property. And I would recommend that to absolutely everybody else that's listening, because you can earn an absolute fortune by systemizing a property business, and it isn't too difficult to do once you understand the formula. So there's a lot of things I do now. I do keynote speaking, I train universities and staff and teachers, corporates. I do corporate sales training, marketing consultancy, all sorts of different things anyway. So I'm more business these days, but I also do the property as well. So that's enough for there, and I'll pass you over to Arsh.
I'll tell you what, Neil, why don't you take us through this section actually, because I think this is a really important section because everyone's involved in property for a specific reason, but no one really talks about some of the benefits that it can actually allow us to have. So do you want to talk us through our commitment to them this evening?
Yeah, definitely. When me and Arsh got together for the first time to talk about what we wanted to create, it was interesting because Arsh said to me, Neil, what you've done in rent to rent is I've not heard of that before. How did you do it so fast? And what strategies did you do? And what we found that Arsh and I really aligned on our values and what we wanted to create in the property market, because a lot of other people talk about letting agents and do this and do that, but when Arsh and I got together, we said some of those things, not all, don't actually work. So we didn't understand where they came from. So we said, look, let's get together and let's teach something based on ethical values, no nonsense and rehashing other people's material. Let's just talk from experience on how we've been able to build our property companies so successfully. So our commitment to you is this. And again, Arsh and I were talking about what we really want out of life and what we felt that the people that we've helped wanted out of life. And it's really interesting because everybody says they want as much money as possible. That's always a thing that comes up. But if you actually think about it, if that's something that you want as well at home, you'll realize that it's not actually the money you want, it's what the money gives you. So we always say it's happiness through education, because it's the money that allows you to get the education and then gives you the freedom. So if you just look at some of these photos, these were some of the main things that people said to Arsh that they wanted out of their life. So on the left was more holiday time, more relaxation time, health. A lot of people have health problems, and I did as well. I used to have a bad back, I had a bad shoulder, I had a bit of a belly before as well. And the reason these things were going on was because I just kept saying to myself, oh, I've got to go to work. I haven't got the time to, take care of these things. And it was only once I actually systemized my business that I was able to just completely cure all of my health ailments really quickly. Same with the travel. How do you travel if you haven't got the money? And how do you travel if you're in a job? You can't just go off for months at a time. So these are other things that are solved. Time, relationships. Time is the big one, and that's what most people have the biggest shortage of. Because if you're working a job or you have other things going on, a busy life, you just don't have a lot of time for yourself. So with rent to rent and deal sourcing, but I'm going to talk specifically on rent to rent. Once you systemize it, it will take you a couple of hours a week. I'd say my rent to rent business, and bear in mind mine's probably 10 times the size of most people's, takes up around an hour per week of my time because my staff manage it. Okay, so that's it, and it does make an absolute fortune each month. So when you come on to the next part we'll talk about is the relationships. If you've got children or a spouse or partner and you feel that maybe you're not spending as much time or you'd like to spend more, again, rent to rent will give you that. You'll just have so much more free time to actually do the things you want to do. So that's really our commitment to you. We'll show you how to get all of these things without without a lot of difficulty, really, I guess is what I'm saying. It is easy once you understand how to do it, but it's just learning. It's just the learning behind the process that's the difficult part. So, Arsh, over to you.
Okay, so the reason why that's all great learning about all that, but the question is why now? Now, obviously, we're still in January, just about, so we're still in the new year. But more importantly, I want to talk about some of the external influences. So recently, our very good friend George Osborne brought in some very new, lovely changes, which landlords have embraced with both arms and hands. And he's brought out so many new different things. And he's made it increasingly nicer or increasingly more, should I say, what's the benefits of becoming a landlord? And so let's just have a quick look at a couple of things. So the first of all is the 3% increase in purchase costs if you're purchasing a second property, which predominantly a lot of landlords will have as an investment property. Now, although you could say that you have to put a lot of money in to buy an investment property, and let's just give you an example. That whereas if you're buying a property, let's say for £100,000, previously or at the moment still, you'll have to put in 25% deposit, which is 25,000. Then you've got to put in for a mortgage for the rest of the 75,000. Then you've got to deal with solicitors, then you've got to deal with mortgage surveyors, and the list goes on. And it becomes increasingly more difficult. Now time has become more of the essence, should I say, because it's becoming increasingly more difficult to become a landlord, not only financially, but also some of the other things that George Osborne's bringing out. And you've got to ask yourself, really, is it worth it? So, if anything, now is the right time. And the reason why I say that also is because obviously banks are tightening up as well. You know, it's only a certain amount of time before inflation rate goes up. Sorry, or should I say interest rate goes up. And what does that do to our lending? What does that do to our cash flow? Now, and the one thing that I said on a webinar that I ran last Sunday is that when you're a landlord or if you own the property, you're never actually in control of that property. Technically speaking, all you're doing is babysitting it for the bank until you've paid off the debt. So you could pretty much say that it's like pretty much having a ball and chain around your neck. When I said that, a lot of people actually resonated with that because until, when people say that you own property, you don't actually own property until it's paid off. But yet you have to jump to the tune of the bank. Unfortunately, if a tenant misses a payment, you can't go to the bank and say, sorry, my tenant's missed a payment, but will you give me a payment holiday? They'll say, sorry, Mr. Smith. Actually, do you mind if I just ask a very quick question? A couple of people have just said that they've lost sound. Can you hear me correctly? Or can you hear me nice and clearly? Okay, fine. So yeah, so everyone's saying that they can hear. So if you did lose us, what you may have to do is log out and log back in because it may be an issue that you're having on your side, but everyone else seems to hear us correctly. So going back to the point of banks is that, unfortunately, until you own the property outright and there's no mortgage on it, there's still lots of things that you have to jump to. You have to jump to their terms and conditions. As the interest rate goes up, so does your payments. And so that you're never fully in control of your cash flow. And this is why I love rent to rent. Just something that I also do is that I write magazines I write articles in magazines such as Your Property Network, which is a property investors magazine written by property investors for property investors. So why do we get involved with rent to rent? It's very simple. It's a simple strategy, and every one of you can do this because there's no mortgage required, which means that it's very little capital intensive. No solicitors involved, no 25% deposit, as I mentioned a short while ago, which means that in actual fact, providing that you've just got a bit of capital, and we'll talk about why you need a little bit of capital, it's very easy to actually create a business from it and generate cash flow. So I like a quote, and I pretty much use this on quite a few of my webinars actually, because I believe that you're either a yes or a no person. I'm very much a yes person. Someone says to me, Arsh, I've got an opportunity, you want to get involved. My first reaction is yes, 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 yes. And the more you say yes, the more opportunities you will get presented with. Someone offers you an amazing opportunity, but you're not sure you can do it. How about you say yes and then learn how to do it later? Now, how does that sound so far? Could everyone say yes to everything that we've said so far? More importantly, this is one that I really like, is that the secret to success is to own nothing but to control everything. Now, a short while ago, Neil says that he's actually in the process of selling a lot of his portfolio. And the reason why he's decided to do that is because when you look at a lot of the large corporates in today's market, companies like Facebook doesn't own any content. Airbnb doesn't actually own any property. Uber Taxis doesn't actually own any taxis, but yet there's still massive companies making a lot of cash flow from other people's assets. They're controlling everything. They're not owning anything. Whereas landlords can be seen as asset rich, capital poor. Whereas companies like Facebook, who thrive off advertising, Airbnb thrive off other people's properties and providing a platform, are cash flow rich and asset non-existent. They don't want to own anything. So this is why rent to rent is so strong and such a powerful strategy. So I'm going to give you the basics. I'm just going to assume would you mind just checking in with me and just telling me, does everyone know what rent to rent is or how rent to rent works? Because I'll start from the very beginning. So there's three people involved in a rent to rent transaction. There's the landlord who actually owns the property and the asset. And then there's you in the centre who's actually looking to take the property off them or manage the property on their behalf. And then the third person in the equation is the tenant who's looking to live in the property long term. So three parties involved. And predominantly you will always sit in the centre. And in simple terms, here's how it works, is that the property, you rent the property off the landlord, you do a light refurbishment on the property or do some slight renovation to the property, and then you rent the property out by the room as opposed to a whole property, which means profit per calendar month. So now, the reason why I like this strategy, and I'm going to be completely open and honest with you, is because I still have a lot of single let properties, which means that I've got a lot of families living in there. And now from time to time, families will move out. And when that family moves out, it means that we've now got no money coming in from that property full stop, which means that I've still got a mortgage to pay every month, which means that I've still got to pay council tax for that property, which means that I've still got to pay the standing charge for the electricity and gas, which means that I've still got outgoings on that property. However, if we turn it into a HMO, which is a house of multiple occupancy, and you let the property out by a room instead of a house, so you've got, let's just use for an example, 5 occupants living in one property. Now, if you can rent out each room, and let's just for this example say that we're renting them out at £400 a month, that means that we're now instead of just generating, let's say, £800 as a single let, we're now generating £2,000. Now that sounds attractive, but now let's just take into consideration that if we rented it off the landlord, let's just say that we're giving him £850 a month, and now our bills are £350 a month. And for those that don't know, the standard model for a HMO is that when you rent it out by the room, you include bills such as council tax, water rates, electricity, gas. Some may include broadband, some may include cleaning services. The average for a 5-bed, the bills comes out around £350 per calendar month. Now, once you've taken your income and you've taken out your outgoings, which is the rent and the utilities, you're left with an approximate profit of £800 a month. Now, times that by a year, that's going to leave you with just short of £10,000. Now, let's just have a quick look at that for a second. £10,000 for a property that you don't own, you've put no money to get involved or very little money to get involved, and yet you still have all the same rights other than having to own the property and you have the same rights to the property, so your commitment is still the same. So when you own a property or when you've bought a property, your commitments to the mortgage company, you're saying that you're going to pay them the monthly payment or interest every month for the next 25 years. Now, with rent to rent, you take it on for a shorter period of time, could be anything from 3, 5, or 7 years. 7 years being the maximum that you can do. And then on that basis, you guarantee that you're going to pay the landlord for the next 3, 5, or 7 years, whatever you've negotiated in your term. And you just take the keys that very same day. Whereas when you're buying a property, you've then got to go through the legal process, go and get a mortgage, go and deal with solicitors, go and deal with mortgage surveyors. And it could take anywhere between a month and 6 months to actually get involved in the property. And in all that time, you're not actually generating any money. So remember, these are the reasons why we love this strategy. Now, I'm going to pass you on to Neil, who is a bit of a marketing and a sales genius, because we've been doing rent to rent for quite a few years now, and we've fine-tuned this strategy as to how to find landlords. Now, there's lots of people in the market, and there's lots of people, with all due respect, there's lots of people teaching how to do rent to rent, but not many people can show you effectively how to find the owner, negotiate with the owner, and bring back the property. So Neil, I'm going to pass it over to you, and can you tell us just a few of your strategies, how you find it, and the process that you go through?
Okay, yeah, that's great, Ash. So we're going to start with a newspaper article, a newspaper advert, because I ran a test. I put one in 10 days ago, so I wanted to run a test to see what sort of results I could get off a new advert. So it's a little bit different from my usual advert. And within 10 days, I've had 17 phone calls. Now, that might not sound like a lot when compared to I used to get 40 to 50 phone calls in the same sort of period. But what I did this time was very different. Instead of opening it up to the whole marketplace, I was very specific, and I said things such as must have 3+ bedrooms. So straight away, it eliminates all those phone calls you're going to get where it's 1, 2 bedrooms, etc. And I also said the areas that I was looking at. So for example, if I'm talking about Manchester or Liverpool, there'll be certain areas there that will work as an HMO. And in my case, Coventry, which is where I'm based, I know the areas that work. I know the areas that don't work. So because of that, my advert will be targeted towards that. So for example, this advert, because it's student time coming up very shortly, I know there's a lot of student houses that are empty, my advert was targeted towards the student market. So I said property must be within 15 to 20 minutes walk of Coventry University. So again, that eliminated a lot of properties that I wasn't interested in. So within the last 10 days, of all those phone calls, already I've had 9 meetings. And of those 9 meetings, 8 of them want to go ahead. So how did I get to that stage? Well, there's 2 things. One is the actual negotiations process. And as Arsh has sort of alluded to, I am a sales trainer and I do a marketing as well. But the main difference is that
Neil?
Arsh,
Hi, mate.
did you lose me there?
I just lost you for a second. Yes. Sorry. What were
Sorry,
you?
I'm not sure what happened there. My screen just went blue. I don't know why. Sorry about that. So we're talking about adverts. I'm not sure where we got to, but coming back onto the advert then, these were some that I pulled off a little while ago just to show you an example. So in the local newspaper, what works the most effectively, and people get this wrong, they try and advertise in the property section. That's not where you advertise. You don't advertise in the property feature because A, it costs an absolute fortune, and B, you've got at least another 10 letting agents that are advertising there, and they will have huge budgets. So they'll have 4-page spreads, double-page spreads. Some of them even have 4 pages, spreads. You don't want to be competing against those people. So when those are going on, just don't even get involved. So what you do is you advertise in the classified section under the property column, and there's usually hardly anything there. You might have 1 or 2 saying we buy houses now, or someone advertising a room for rent, but other than that you won't really find anything. So you only really need a credit card size advert, and it doesn't cost a lot to put one of those in. Even if it costs you, you're in London, and it costs you, let's say, a couple of £100, which is a lot because I pay about £25 for my adverts for each one. So let's say you spent £200 and you got a deal from that. And let's say the deal cash flowed £1,000 a month, or even less. Let's say £500 a month. That's £6,000 worth of profit within the year. So that's £18,000 worth of profit within 3 years. So even if you pay £200 to put an advert in, it's still worth it. You're going to get a huge return on that. So talking about the advert specifically then, one of the most important things is to keep your advert simple. Really, really simple. And it's the same with all of your marketing, so letters and brochures and things like that. People get this wrong. And it's really amusing whenever if ever I put anything out there, my brochures, and people say, oh, have you seen Neil's this? He hasn't done it right, he hasn't done this. And whenever I see that, I know those people aren't doing well in their marketing. Because if you put everything on your marketing, oh, we do this, we do that, this problem solved, that problem, and you list absolutely everything, why would they call you for more information? They've already got everything they need to know to make a decision. And then what happens is people spend forever making a decision, or they don't make a decision. So what you want to do is keep your adverts very vague, very simple. So you want a yellow background, a large headline, so it's called a H1, which means it's the main headline, and then a H2, which is your secondary headline, which is around 50% the size of your main headline. And then just a little bit smaller than that is your text. And you want to keep it really simple, bullet points in black with a call to action at the end. So call whoever, call Neil, for example, now on, and the phone number. And that's really how simple your advert needs to be. And the ones on screen there are really simple adverts for you to look at. Okay, so general rule is don't overcomplicate it, keep it really simple, and make it vague so that they call you for more information. So let's go on to the next one, Arsh, because I haven't seen what you've put here, so I'm freestyling this. Okay, direct mail. Okay, so this is another strategy that I use, which is my direct mail response strategy.
Neil, quick question.
Yeah.
Are there love letters on the left-hand side?
Love snail mail, it says. And there's a reason why. I didn't put that, but it's quite funny. There's a reason why. Snail mail, a lot of people don't do it anymore. And it really surprises me how people come on the trainings and I say to them, so clearly, don't bother with landlord databases, don't bother with this, don't bother with that. And then I see it in our group, Arsh, all the time. Oh, I want to buy a landlord database. Oh, I haven't had any results. And it just amazes me. And it keeps happening all the time. Landlord databases don't work, especially the HMO databases, because they've been absolutely hammered by people. And not only have they been hammered, but they change so often. People buy and sell property like it's going out of fashion these days. So they're always changing. So that the actual chance of your letter getting read is very low. And a lot of the time, people do get phone calls back, but it's complaints from the landlords. Stop writing to me, I get too many of these, etc. So there's a much better way to do it. And this is the most effective way you will be able to find landlords anywhere in the country. So if you haven't written anything else down, get ready to write this one down. Because this will generate 80% of your leads, at least. Okay? So what you do, you go to your target area. So that's making sure that you already know your goldmine area. You go to your target area and you look around for properties that you think would be suitable. Too many people do this online as well. And again, it's not the way to do it. You need to actually get your feet on the ground in that area. Walk around, get a feel for it. Get a feel for it during the day, get a feel for it at night. Because you'll be surprised, but some areas in the day turn into no-go areas at night. And I almost took on a property in one of these areas, but it's only because I actually went there at night that I found out that there was a gang area. So you've really got to be careful and do your research properly. So you walk around, and when you see boards up saying to let, for rent, etc., you make a note of that house number. So you write that house number down, you write, who it's on with or whatever down. And then when you get home, you go on to land registry. So it's a portal, land registry. And you're going to download the title deeds for that property. So as an example, 123 Smith Street, London, whatever. So you put that address in, and then it will give you the option to download the title, and it costs £3 to do this. Now, once you've got that title, that's the cheapest bit of marketing you'll ever get. Some people say, oh, I'm not spending £3. I'd rather send out 1,000 leaflets, and those leaflets will never work. £3 is a direct hit. You've now got all the information you need to know on that property that is exactly what you want and in your area, and it's costing you nothing to do, £3. You then take the letter template that Arsh and I have, and bear in mind, I've written this myself. So I have got copywriting experience, I'm very good at it, so the letters are really effective and they work almost every time. So you use the letter, you just change it to your own details, put your phone number on, and then you post it to the landlord. Now you use a different coloured envelope, because if it goes in a normal white envelope and it's all typed up, neat and tidy, and it's franked, that landlord's not going to open it. Or if they do, they're not interested. But when they receive a letter like this, and it looks like a birthday card, then they're more likely to open it. And again, always a first class stamp, never second, because it makes you look cheap. So you want to show that it's an important letter, and that's what you send to the landlord. And then what will happen is, again, that letter is not in depth. It's quite vague in areas. It's just showing that what you're going to do is very similar to a corporate let for them, and take all the hassle away. They'll then call you, and so the whole point of the letter is really simple. It's just to get that phone call. And the whole point of the phone call is, again, really simple. It's just to get a meeting. It's only when you do the meeting that all the work's done. So people just get this completely wrong, and I hear it all the time, and it doesn't make any sense to me, but there we go. That is the formula I've just given you. You don't want to start telling people everything about it in the letter or telling them all about it in the phone call, because then they've got no reason to meet with you. So you need to give them enough that gives them that incentive to meet. And some of you will probably have the question, well, what incentive to meet? Well, what I always say is, really simply, if they do say, well, how much are you going to give me and what about this? I say, to be honest, we could talk about this all day, but the best thing for you would be if I actually come and have a look at the property. It only take me a few minutes, and then I can value that property and see what sort of rent I could offer you straight away. There'll be no hypotheticals, it will be real life. So if that's easier, it would just take a few minutes. When would be good for that? Okay? So I know I said that pretty fast, but hopefully you got that. But something along those lines, and that's how you get to the meeting. Okay, what's next, Arsh? What's the next slide? Okay, tradesman?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about tradesmen. So another strategy that I've done really well with is the tradesman strategy. And I've told this story a million times now, but it probably changes a little bit each time actually. But how it all came about was with my builder. So I had a builder, and I told him all about what I was doing, because he used to do a lot of work for me, and we worked on projects together where we were, doing building work and sharing the profits basically, similar to with the deal sourcing. And one day he just said that he knew a landlord who had an empty property. Actually, there was more than one, but I didn't know that at the time. And he asked me if I'd give him some money if it came about, if there was a deal and stuff. And I said, yeah, I'll give you some money. So I offered him way too much. He was thinking, 20, 30 quid or something. And I gave him, I think it was about 200 or 250 pounds. It was a while back now. But that's how it came about. And then from then I thought, do you know what, that was a really good idea, because I got 4 houses out of that. So I thought, right, how can I replicate this and scale it so that I actually end up getting more houses from tradespeople? So each time I had a tradesperson come around and do some work, because at the beginning I was doing a lot of the rent-to-rent maintenance myself, you see. Now I have a team that does it for me. But at the start, and I'd recommend this to anyone, you've got to do a lot of it yourself. You've got to get your head into the game to figure out how everything works. So here was me doing little bits and pieces here and there. I'd have plumbers coming over, or different tradesmen, or decorator, or someone. And I'd say the same thing I said to the builder. Told them all about my rent-to-rent and the strategies and things like that. And I told them I'd give them money. And before I knew it, I was getting deal after deal after deal being brought to me. Now, to them, they didn't know it was a deal. And until I actually got to the house and looked at it, it wasn't a deal either. But once you've done a few, you'll get a feel for it, and you'll know when it's a deal. And the great thing is when you come across one, like I did a while ago, where the landlord had half a dozen houses and they were all empty, because he'd been messed around with by letting agents, and now he just completely was fed up with it, lost all trust, and just left his houses empty. And I did a deal on all 6 of those for a really low rent, because I told him I was going to renovate the houses for him. And that was it. He was absolutely ecstatic. He was so happy, because for him they were just a pension anyway that he could sort of pass on to his children when they were, I think something funny, it was like when they're 40 or something like that, which I found quite funny. But each to their own. He had his reasons, and that was his business. So the tradesman strategy is absolutely fantastic. So how can you use this strategy? Well, quite simply, keep a database. Any good tradesmen that you've got. Now, if you were to go to your phone now, you've probably got some tradesmen that you've used in the past. Maybe you had a dripping tap, or the shower broke, or the electrics went off one day, you had an electrician. Whoever it is, if you tell them about the strategy that you're doing, they will more than likely know a landlord with an empty property right now. Or they'll know a landlord that they might have been around there doing maintenance on an empty property. And all they need to do is, especially if you tell them I'll give you £200 cash if it works out, they will run to that landlord to tell them, so that they can get this money from you. And it really is as easy as that. Now, here's one of the things that you don't want to do, which is some of the mistakes that I see people doing all the time, because they hear this strategy, they hear me teach it, and they haven't been through my training, so they just run off and try and figure it out for themselves. So I'll give you a couple of tips now. Number 1, don't mass text all the tradesmen in the yellow pages, because you will get some really abusive messages back. So that's one thing you don't want to do. Number 2, you don't want to call tradesmen around to your house for fictitious jobs that don't exist, and then call 10 different tradesmen, because a lot of the time they'll know each other and they'll find out what you're doing and they'll get really annoyed by it. So that's another thing that I heard someone do and got into a bit of a scuffle over it, shall we say. So they're the two things you don't want to do. The best way to do this is to do it organically and naturally, which is to call up tradesmen that you know at the moment and maybe you're friends with and do the strategy that way. The other way is when you get your first property, your first rent to rent, or if you've got your own investment property, is to call some, go through your phone book and get different tradesmen around when it's a genuine job, and just see who is the sort of person that's willing to work with you, who you get on with, and I'd build relationships with those people, because here's one thing that doesn't happen: a tradesman isn't thinking about your £200 cash offer 24/7. It just doesn't happen. Give it 2 or 3 months and they forget. You have to call them again and have that conversation again. So you're constantly building this relationship and calling them every few months, every 2 or 3 months, seeing how they're getting on, seeing if they've come across any houses yet. So that's the best way to do it. And Arsh, is there any more?
Now what we've done is given away there 3 golden nuggets. But how many different strategies do you use, Neil?
Well, here's the interesting thing. I've probably got over 200 strategies, but I probably use about 5 or 6, 7 at the most, all the time. I mean, the letter writing is what takes up 70–80% of my time, which I don't even do anymore, I should add. It's not even my time it takes up.
Okay. So there you go, guys. So what we're doing is very simple. We don't own the property. We don't want to own the property. But what we're doing is making cash flow out of a property that we don't own. And all we're doing is simply managing it on behalf of the owner. Now, there's going to be a few people that are skeptical about this strategy on the webinar tonight, and there always is. Some people will always say, well, you make it sound too easy. Can everyone do this? The honest answer is that yes, because what's involved is negotiation skills. Now, the beauty about this strategy is that you have the power to negotiate. Now, I always go back to the scenario where you compare this against purchasing a property. Now, when you purchase a property, you may have a negotiation with the owner or the estate agent to try and get a lower price, but you've got no negotiation whatsoever with the mortgage company. Whereas here, the negotiation is with the owner who already owns the property. You dictate the terms, or should I say, you negotiate the terms. And by doing that, you create a win-win scenario. So the key skills that are required in negotiation and communication. Communication is a big key in all of our lives. So regardless of friendships that we've got, relationships that we've got, we need to communicate with one another. And providing we're able to communicate with one another on a level, but more importantly, almost create a relationship with everyone that we speak to. So regardless of whether you've got a pound in your pocket or £1 million in your pocket, you've got to be able to have the communication skills to communicate everyone at every single level. And you'll find that providing that you have those skills, which if you don't can very easily be taught or even practice every day to everyone that you speak to, you should be able to pull in a deal every time. But more important, communication's a key skill, but what else is required? Because you can speak to people, but if you haven't got the other things, why would they believe you? Now, again, I did a webinar on Sunday and I talked about, and these things really hit it home for me as to why this strategy is so powerful for me and why I pull in so many deals on rent to rent, as well as lease options, as well as other sourcing deals that I do. It's because I've got hunger. It's because I've got focus. It's because I've got discipline. It's because I communicate More importantly, I've got the enthusiasm, the dedication, and the consistency, as well as self-direction. Now, the one that I've missed out there is internal motivation, because Neil would have spoken about tonight about us writing out letters. Now, not everyone that you write to is going to come back and snap your hand off, which may leave you slightly deflated. Now, don't expect you to write 10 letters and get 10 responses. Remember, it's a numbers game. But what you may find is that someone may not be interested today, but will put it in their drawer. And when they've got a bit more motivation or a bit more pain to show, they'll come back to you and say, okay, Neil, yeah, I saw your letter 3 months ago. It wasn't of interest then, but things have changed, circumstances have changed. Is there anything that we can do now? Are you still interested in taking my property? So at the time you'll feel deflated, but it's about the ability to pick yourself back up and go again. So you need the focus, you need the hunger, you need the discipline, you need the consistency. Don't think I'm going to put 10 letters out, I'm going to wait for the next 3 months for 10 responses. It won't happen. How about put out 1,000 letters? How about make 1,000 phone calls? How about send out 1,000 different mediums? Get yourself everywhere possible. And the reason why I say this is because marketing is your key. Now, at some point or another, you would have heard about this webinar somewhere, otherwise you wouldn't have got here tonight. And that has only come through marketing. So you would have either received an email, you would have either seen this on social media, you might have had this through referral, you might have seen it advertised in the YPN magazine. Have you noticed there, I've mentioned 4 different types of medias that I've advertised this webinar on to get you here tonight. You've got to do exactly the same to get yourself in front of as many landlords as possible. And that can only come through having the hunger, the discipline, and the focus. Does that make sense? But more importantly, the one thing that you've got to have, and without this, nothing else works. If you don't have passion about what you do, people won't believe you. Passion is a key driver. Now, if you put me in a room against another person that doesn't have so much more self-belief, I'm going to win every day of the week because I'm passionate about what I do. Admittedly, I could very easily not have to go to work every day. I don't need to. I'm financially free. I do it because I'm still young, and I do it because I've still got so much more to give. And I saw this quote the other day, and I really loved it, and I've kept it in my webinars ever since. Working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. Now, just take a moment and think about that. You're working hard every day in your 9 to 5. Not something really you want to do. And it's stressful. It's a job. It's a means to an end. But if you're working for something you actually love, which a lot of people are involved in property full time, it's a passion. It's addictive. The more you have, the more you want. And, it's very much property is a drug. The hardest part is getting the first one, getting the ball in motion. Once the ball's in motion, it's like riding a bike. Once one foot is off the ground, the other one follows. And it keeps going, it keeps going. And the faster, the more confident you get, the more leads will generate. The more places you put yourself at, the more leads you generate. The faster you become, the more the business gets interesting. It gets exciting. More money starts coming in. You can start to do other things. We're now in a world of opportunity. Now, go back to the point which Neil talked about this morning. Oh, sorry, not this morning, but earlier in this webinar. We've now got freedom. We've now got opportunity. You can now go on holiday. We've now got more time to spend with family. And this is what this strategy can bring home for you. And I like this because this picture actually reminded me of Neil. The key is negotiation. To be successful in rent to rent, you must be a strong negotiator. Because when you turn up to a landlord, if you just give in to every demand that they ask, you're never going to make any money. You've got to come back and combat every question with a confident answer. More importantly, the script is the key to success. You need to know what to say, how to say it, why we're saying it, how to build confidence, how to give the answers that the landlord are looking to say. But more importantly, you've got to build confidence in that landlord's mind that for the next 3, 5, or 7 years, he's going to be completely hassle-free. You're not going to approach him for that leaky tap that his other tenants have done. You're not going to keep going back to him with another bill that the letting agent have done for the last few years. You're not going to keep calling him for the smallest of things. He's coming to you for convenience. You're buying his time. In return, you are creating your own freedom. And that really is it, guys, in the simplest of forms, rent to rent. So negotiation is the key. The script is the key to success. But more importantly, the devil is in the detail. You need to break it down to the nth degree to figure out what's your break-even point. How many rooms do I need to let out to cover my base cost? What happens if one room's vacant? What happens if 2 rooms are vacant? What happens if 3 rooms are vacant? What point am I losing money? What point am I making money? And the calculations are the key. Because, like Neil said earlier, if you get a property and you can't let it out, what's the point? Why are you doing it? No one wakes up every morning to lose money. It is very much a business, and you guys have got to think about it as a business. So there's key things, and I appreciate that this is quite hard-hitting stuff, but you've got to take this into consideration when you're with a landlord. If it doesn't work, don't be afraid to walk away, because they've called you out because they've seen something that's interested them. Now you've got to make sure that you've got something of any value for them to take on board. And the beauty with it is, this strategy works nationwide. Whether you're right up north or whether you're right down south, it works nationwide. Depending on the figures, rent to rent can work on single lets as well as multi lets. All comes down to negotiation. And so really the question is, why aren't you doing it? Why are people still so adamant about owning property? That includes me. But with all due respect, I've still got my father's mentality. I have to own everything. I have to own everything. But in the meanwhile, I'm using this strategy as my pure cash flow strategy. The more cash flow I generate from this, the more properties I can buy for my long term, which are for my daughters who will inherit my portfolio. So you can look at it as cash flow being my short term, my long term is my capital growth, and my portfolio which my daughters will inherit. The more cash flow I generate, the more properties I can buy, the more my daughters will benefit. Makes sense so far? So just out of curiosity, so we've told you a few key things. Obviously, we're here for the next 15 minutes, but the one thing that I do want to talk to you about is how we can do this more so on a 2-day event that we'll be holding at the end of Jan. So the next one, admittedly, very short notice. It's this weekend. And the reason why we've kept it very short notice is very simple. I want to keep you focused. At the moment, as you're listening to me on this webinar, you're focused, you're in the zone. Yes, you can do this. By this weekend and at the end of this weekend, you're going to have every tool in your toolbox to go and smash this on Monday morning. So a couple of things that you need to figure out is, what's your gold mine area? How to dominate your gold mine area? How to get in front of a large amount of landlords? We've already given you 3 strategies this evening. How about if I give you another 27 So you can leave with 30 strategies. How to create a high-end finish for a low cost. Remember, when you take someone else's property on, yes, you've got to get it up to a lettable standard, but you don't want to go off spending 15 or 20,000 pounds on it. How about if you spend anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000, but yet get a high-end finish which professionals will be able to live in? How to be legally compliant and avoid all the pitfalls that others have been caught out with. What documents do you need? What management agreements do you need? Why do we use management agreements as opposed to license agreements? How to calculate the numbers and the profit. More important, remember I said the devil's in the detail? I will give you my exact spreadsheets as to what I do so that I type the numbers in and it will tell me that, Arsh, I need to let 3 out of the 5 rooms to make money. Is it worth doing? And it's a very simple calculator. And I'll be showing you some of the stuff that I've done. Now, I've taken on anything from a 4-bed HMO right up to a 19-bed HMO right on this strategy. The rules remain the same. The only difference is the bigger the room, the more number the rooms, the more cash flow it generates. So you've got to have some real big, you've got to have some real big confidence to take on a 19-bed. And I do, and I'm happy to do that. Now, and the one thing that will be shown is the Neil's exact model of how he got to 11k cash flow, 11k per calendar month in 1 year. Let's just round it up to 10k. So he's producing £120,000 in cash flow in 1 year. Now, that's what we do on the Saturday. Now, on the Sunday, remember the one key that I said? Negotiations. We spend a whole day homing in on the negotiations. And when we talk about negotiations is all about sales psychology, buying patterns. Everything that we do is surrounded about psychology. Why we do the things we do is surrounded about psychology. How we make people feel is about psychology. The better we make them feel, the more they're going to want to do business with us. The more confidence we give them, the more they're going to like us. And we're going to show you the exact process for taking a prospective landlord from the first letter to the phone call to a deal. And more importantly, this is the part I love. We're going to be showing you how to overcome objections, because landlords naturally are going to come to you and say, okay, why should I give you my property as opposed to just keep renting it out myself? What are you going to do? What's so special about you? For every action, there's a reaction. For every objection, there's an answer. Not always an answer, but an educated answer, which gives them more confidence. But the one thing is that if I know a lot of people that come on trainings like this, and they're not the confidentest of people, and by the end of it, they're doing live interactions on the day. And more importantly, you'll be learning Neil's relationship selling, which is sold on both sides of the continent. I appreciate it is very short notice. It is this weekend. And here's living proof of the last course that we held in 2015. We had over 70 people on this course. We had a double screen, double room. Now, I appreciate that this is short notice, so stay with me. Now, we've trained hundreds of people on the rent-to-rent strategy in 2015. And so many people have come back. Actually, I forgot to mention one thing. This weekend, I've actually got a special guest arriving, and he's a special guest now. I'm actually a little bit in awe of him. I've been in business now full-time in property, just over 15 years. And myself and Neil, we trained a young lad to the name of JC in February last year. And since February, how many properties? Now, here's a question. How many properties do you reckon he's taken on in, it's not even 12 months yet. Have a guess. Okay. So one person knows the answer. Yes, 2 people know the answer. Okay, he's taken on 18 properties. That's right, 18 properties in 1 year, as well as run his other fragrance business. Now, the reason why it's so impressive is because people say, well, Arsh, London is such a buoyant market for renting. Landlords will never give me their stock. Now, JC is actually based in Croydon. Now, Croydon, last time I checked, was in London. And he has managed to negotiate with 18 landlords who have all handed over their property to him, which he's now taken on a 3, 5, and 7-year lease. And JC started with very little capital. I think he started with the best part of £5,000. So here's some of the guys, and here's some of the other guys that have been on. I'm just going to quickly show you one lady. Actually, I haven't got her. There's one lady that came on our course in, was it last year, or maybe even the tail end of the year before? A lady called Deborah, and she came on, and within 4 weeks, she found a landlord who gave her access to one property first, and then over the next 4 months, gave her 32 properties. Remember, it's a numbers game. The more rapport you build, the more confidence the landlord's going to give, the more confidence the landlord's going to have in you. Now, remember, not all landlords just only have one property. If it's working well for them, why won't they offer you another one? I wouldn't always go to a landlord and say, hi, Mr. Landlord, I know that you've got 10 properties. Can I take all 10 properties off you? He's going to say, thank you very much, Arsh. Thanks for wasting my time, but there's the door. But if I say, well, okay, Mr. Landlord, I appreciate we've only just met. Why don't we do this? Why don't we see how one goes? Let's see how the relationship builds up. Let's see how it works for one another. And if it works great, then when the next property comes available, why don't you give me another shot with it? And then the third property, and then the fourth property, and then the fifth property. Do you see how it starts to work? And this is what I want to do for you. I want to turn you into a lead magnet, which effortlessly pulls in between 6 and 10 leads a month using very low cost guerrilla marketing techniques. When we're talking about that, we're teaching you the benefits of writing the letters, how we write the letters, the format we put the letters in, how we contact tradespeople, what we're saying to tradespeople, where we're doing it, why we're doing it, and more importantly, the numbers of how we do it. Because remember, it's how to build a lasting relationship, not with investors. Well, they are with investors, so that they become repeat customers for your deals and houses. All you need is that one landlord like Deborah, and you could be set up for life. Deborah's now got 32 other properties. She doesn't need to tout any other landlord. All she needs to do is maintain the relationship with this one. More importantly, I'm going to be giving you quite a few secrets which has allowed me to get the phone ringing consistently for months, and it only costs £57 to do. I'll be showing you how to get enough investors for you to do deals for the rest of the year. Now, I'm so confident that obviously we've trained hundreds of people on this strategy, and we're confident that the workshop that we're running this weekend, if you're not completely happy with it by the end of day one, all you got to do is say, Arsh, okay, it's not for me. Thank you very much, and I'll give you your money back. That's how confident I am. So I'm offering you a money back guarantee. So all you got to say is, Arsh, okay, it's not for me. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure meeting you. I'll say, okay, no problem. I'll send you your money back. And it's that how simple it is. And with all due respect, for those that know who I am, I'm not going to run away with £995, because this is what success looks like. Look at the face of pure accomplishment, and that's going to be you. Hopefully, a little bit older. You owe it to yourself to at least try the strategy. So here's what we're going to do. Now, we had a bit of a technical when I say financial, well, we've got a bit of an issue with our PayPal account, because last week, I introduced something called the Elite Property Tribe, and we've taken on so many members that PayPal have actually stopped us taking any more people on. And I learned about this at 7 o'clock this evening. So we're having to compromise. Is that the right word? We're having to do something where I've never done this before, so this is new for me. We do have got a website. It's arshellahi.com. And you can find all the event details on the website. But unfortunately, you can't book through it because PayPal won't accept your payment. But what you can do is this is of interest. You can text me on my personal mobile number, which is right there below. And for $9.95, I'm offering you the opportunity to come on a workshop this weekend. It's in Dudley. It's in the West Midlands. But more importantly, I want you to become part of it. I want you to become an exceptional individual, part of the exceptional individuals who we've helped turn into rent-to-rent specialists in the UK. And again, you'll be meeting people like JC. You'll be meeting other guys that we've helped along the way who's going to be helping us on the weekend. And tonight, you can have it for $9.95. And here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to actually allow you to bring a guest for absolutely free. You've heard it here. It's not advertised anywhere else on any website or anything like that. It's $9.95 per person, or what you can have the whole weekend for $9.95, and you can bring a business partner for free. And here's what you'll be getting. So you'll be getting the one-day rent-to-rent training, showing you where to find the property, how to find the property, why you'd want that property. Second day, we'll be teaching you how to do the sales training. As well as that, you'll be getting the management agreement that we use, which costs us £3,000 to set up with our solicitor. You don't need to spend that money. We've already spent it for you. You'll get all our legal documentation. You'll get our templates of letters and adverts, as well as the key to success, which also helps with the day-to-day tenant management. You'll have a buffet meal on both days. You'll have membership to a secret rent-to-rent group. And the reason why we say that is because that is priceless, because after the course, if there are any further questions, the education doesn't stop there. What happens is that we add you into a group, and then you can ask questions every day. And on top of that, you actually get a one-on-one call with Neil after the course. So if there's things that you haven't kind of taken on board from the course, or you kind of missed off when you wanted further clarification, feel free to call Neil. I'm going to give you his personal mobile number. I think he likes it when you call him around 2 o'clock in the morning, preferably drunk. As well as that, you get the lifetime support through the social media platform. So you're going to get well in excess of £10,000 worth of benefits there, and you can have it for £995. I appreciate, and I do not apologise for the short notice, because this is now. Your time is now. You've decided that 2016 is your year. Everyone really pumps themselves up that at the start of the year, I'm going to smash this year. I've just presented to you for the last 60 minutes a strategy which transformed my life, transformed Neil's life, and have transformed hundreds of people's lives that we've been teaching it over the last few years. The location is De Veers Village Spa Hotel in Dudley. The date is this weekend. And on top of that, on the Saturday evening, we even get people around in the restaurant and the bar, and we sit around, and it's a very social event. So now the question that I've got is, what's stopping you? We've identified why you want to do it. We've shown you how you can do it. The only person that's stopping you from succeeding now is yourself. And it really is that simple. Again, all you have to do is, if this is for you, all you have to do is text me. Now, are there any questions? By all means, I appreciate that this has been a very low interaction webinar. Neil, are you still with me?
I am, Ash. I am. I just had myself on mute there.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add to that, Neil?
No, I think you've done really well actually, and covered most of the points. Um, so no, I think you've pretty much covered it actually, Ash.
Okay, right, no, because okay, we've got some good questions here now, right? So let's have a quick look here. Okay, so people are asking how. No, okay, you're very right. Here we go. Do we need to get solicitors involved in rent to rent like lease options? Neil, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I'd love to. The answer is not really. What I always advise is for your first contract, use a solicitor. Definitely do it for the first management agreement that you actually do. Use a solicitor just because it will give you that peace of mind. That's what I always recommend to people. But in reality, do you need one? Definitely not. You know, if you were to rent a property through a letting agent, would they use a solicitor? No. So it's no different. Now just remember, your management agreement that I've created with Arsh and different solicitors is absolutely solid. And it's gone through so many different solicitors and landlords. And the beauty is, especially at the beginning, each landlord had something to say on the agreement or something they wanted to change or, so now it's very rare that anything comes up, where a landlord doesn't like something in the agreement because it's just so strong now. So you don't actually need a solicitor because we've done all that work for you. All that work has been done by solicitors. So the only reason you should use one if you want to is just for your own peace of mind if you don't feel confident on your first deal. But the answer, no, you don't need a solicitor.
Okay, great. So just quickly, uh, right. Okay, so just quickly saying, you mentioned that you have some cash when taking on a property. What will that be for? Voids. Neil, how much cash do you spend on a property, and what do you keep in as a reserve?
Oh, well, now hardly anything. I mean, the maximum I would ever spend on a property would be £2,000 at the most. That really is the maximum because again, I can teach you the system, and I will, of how you do it. Even if it costs £5,000, I'll show you how it'll cost you 2,000, and the rest of the costs get passed to the landlord. There's a way to do it where the landlord will agree to almost anything, because it's based on spreading out the payments and solving their problems, and just showing them in the future what it's going to do. So it is really simple, or at least I make it sound simple, but it's just following the formulas really and the models.
Okay, great. Okay. What's the least
I
you've?
will say one thing, Ash, just before you come. I mean, the most expensive refurb I ever did was about 3,500, I think. And that was, I thought that was a lot of money that I spent there because it took me 6 months to break even on that, which is the maximum I'd ever go up to, 6 months. But the lowest refurb cost ever was about £10. And I think I put in a toilet brush and a couple of other little bits. Because the property was in absolute beautiful condition. Everything was just lovely, new, all the furniture, even new mattresses. So they are about those sort of deals, and that makes around, off the top of my head, without looking at the accounts, about 750 to 800 a month on that property. And I've got that for 5 years actually, and I didn't spend more than £10 on that one.
Okay, interesting. Right. Okay. Quickly going through. When you first go to a property, do you only need to add when you first go to a property, do you only need to add safety components like a fire door and smoke alarms? Right. Okay. Um, this could take us off on a bit of a tangent because there's a
Yeah.
different things called licensed HMOs, unlicensed HMOs. How many rooms you need for it to be licensed? How many rooms you need it for it to be unlicensed? So I could pretty much spend the next hour just talking about that. We do cover it in great detail on the weekend because obviously that's a legal compliance that everyone has to adhere to. If the simple answer is that if you are interested in it, first of all, yes, come on the workshop. But second of all, you can just download what is called an amenity standards guide from your local council's website. That's the best way for me to describe it without going off on a bit of a tangent, because I appreciate we are actually running over on time. So someone put, can you share the structure of the letter to the landlords? Unfortunately, Labina, we only share the documents with the guys that come on the workshop. They're not for general consumption or for public sale. They are specifically for guys who come on, and that's our exclusivity offer to the guys who decide to come on the workshop and come part of our group. So I hope you understand that, and hopefully I'll get to see you on the workshop. So, right. What happens when a tenant can no longer pay the rent because their circumstances has changed? Exactly the same scenario is if a tenant doesn't pay rent, then it's a simple question. You've got to start to look to evict or to move them out of your property as quickly as possible and limit any damage or pain or financial pain to you. So it's interesting that you asked that. Now, Anton has asked, how much should I pay for an accountant? I live in London. Now, here's the thing. People in London only think that things in London exist. Let's get you out your mindset. You can have an accountant anywhere in the country. You can have a solicitor anywhere in the country. You can have an architect anywhere in the country. And you can have an accountant anywhere in the country. There's this lovely thing that we all communicate by email. All the stuff that I do now, my brokers are based up in North. I'm based in the West Midlands. I've got solicitors in London. I've got solicitors that are based in the Midlands. I've actually got solicitors that are actually based down in the South as well. We all communicate by email. I don't visit these guys. I shouldn't need to. So, you find one that fits with you. Okay. So here's a good question. How is it hard to find tenants? Where do you advertise to draw tenants in?
Arsh, do you want me to take that one?
Yes, please, mate. Yes, sorry.
Okay. Well, this is an interesting one because I get asked this a lot. Now, there are a lot of platforms that you can find tenants from. They're all over the place, everywhere. But for me, I only really focus on, or at least my staff do, on one platform now, which is spareroom.com, or it might be .co.uk, but it's called Spare Room anyway if you do a Google search for it. And it's just the best platform. And the reason for that is the quality of tenant that goes through that is a lot higher than your likes of Easy Room and these other places. I don't know why that is. It's really bizarre. But when I have tenants from places like Easy Room, they tend to be there's nothing wrong with these tenants, by the way, for say, but they tend to be people who are on minimum wage. Okay, that's what I tend to get from Easy Room, or part-time workers and things like that. But with Spare Room, it tends to be professional people. A lot of people from the EU, a lot of Spanish and Italian, also people from America as well. They come here for jobs, and you'd be amazed at the sort of people that apply for rooms. Even in places like I live in Coventry, I just saw one that came across the desk yesterday, and the guy earns £57,000 as an engineer. And I thought, why are you applying for a room for £450 when you're earning that sort of money? Why not get an apartment? It's bizarre. And I did find out why, because I asked one of the guys, why is he doing that? They said he doesn't want to commit to an apartment. He wants to live with 3 other people. He doesn't want to live alone and things like that. So it is interesting, and you'll only understand these things and learn these things when you actually get into doing it. So yeah, it's a great experience, really.
Okay, so just going through some of the last questions. Now, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I think we have pretty much covered everything. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you Neil's mobile number. And again, by all means, feel free to give us a call. If you think this is for you, take the next step. Come and have a chat with us. want to have a chat, more than happy to see how we can assist you on this journey. Or if you want to come through to me, you're more than welcome to. You've got my mobile number there, which has been on the screen for quite a while. But I want to share the journey with you. I want to take you from no properties to 18 or 32 properties like we've done with JC and Deborah.
Deborah.
Yeah, and there's so many other people that we've got in our little social forum who have gone off and done extremely well just by following the system. We haven't.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing. I mean, the testimonials that you can find that speak for themselves anyway. That's why I always say to Arsh, we don't blast out webinars and marketing and things like that non-stop. A, because I've got companies to run, and so has Arsh. But B, because it's all word of mouth. The majority of people that come on the training is through word of mouth. They've seen other people at other property meetings who are making, fortune in rent to rent, and they want to know, how did you do it? Because I've done this rent to rent course and I didn't do very well, and it's the same old story all the time. Because most rent to rent courses out there, they're just teaching each other's material, and then when you actually look at it in depth from someone perspective, Arsh or I, or someone that's doing really well from it, you think, these things don't work. Where's this come from? And everyone's teaching the same thing that doesn't work. So if you look at any of the testimonials, especially on YouTube, there's about 3 or 4 videos now full of testimonials. You'll see for yourself that the people, even people with no experience, have come on the training and now they're either financially free or they're getting there, this year. And yeah, as I've said, we completely stand by our commitment on this training, and I do think it's the best training out there, and I don't know how many more we're going to be running, because both Arsh and I, we just get busier and busier all the time. I spend a lot of my time in California now, as many of you know, because of the property there and things, and all my work there. So if you can get on this weekend, it would be a good one to get on, because I honestly don't know when the next training I'm going to be able to get on and do. So there's a bit of an incentive for you there. All right, thanks, Arsh.
Brilliant. Okay, guys, I'd like to wish you all the very best. The very best with your journey. I hope to be part of your journey. And if there's anything else that you'd like to ask, you've got our contact details. Feel free to ask. And one person has just asked very quickly, what's the address of the seminar? So it's at the De Vere Village Spa Hotel in Dudley in the West Midlands. And again, it is a Saturday and Sunday event. And yeah, you know where we are. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time. If there's anything else that you'd like to ask, you've got our contact details. You can find us on email. My name's Arsh Ellahi. You've been online with us for just over 60 minutes with Neil Ward. I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for your company, and we hope to see you very soon. Good night. God bless.
Yeah, thanks, Arsh. Thank you, everybody. Good night.